Build your business and improve your finances from the inside out with Joan Sotkin on The Prosperity Show.
Hi everyone, Joan Sotkin here, and for over 30 years I've been helping people reach their business, financial, and personal goals. And via this podcast, I'd like to do that for you too. My approach is holistic, which means we look at many internal aspects of you, including your physical, emotional, and spiritual health, as well as the business and financial skills you need to acquire in order to succeed in a complex world. My main site is prosperityplace.com, where you'll find lots of information to help you reach your goals. I hope you'll visit the site and download the free information that's available there. So recently, via Facebook, I received a message from someone who has been trying valiantly to give up sugar, and no matter how hard she tries, she goes back to eating it again. So I told her that I would do an episode on giving up sugar, which I'm going to do today. It's a lot more complicated than I have read about with people who say, I gave up sugar for a week or I gave up sugar for a month. And here's what happened. Well, I gave up sugar on August 11th, 1973. So you do the math. And have really not eaten sugar since. Now, after all these years, I'll eat salad dressing that has 1 gram of sugar per 2 tablespoons, which is hardly any. And if I go out to eat, I don't have to give the waitress the 3rd degree to find out what's in the food. So, and I've gone through treatments that allow this to happen. But I want to get real about what it takes to give up sugar and perhaps why you're so addicted to sugar or why you need sugar the way you do. And it's not just sugar. It's a whole bunch of things because your body is very complex. And a lot of chemical reactions happen when you eat a little bit of sugar, a lot of sugar, sugar over a long period of time. And it has to do with both your brain chemicals and your endocrine system. And I'm going to give you a little background on why I decided to give up sugar. It kind of decided for me. And hopefully you'll have a better idea of what you need to do. Because there's no doubt about it. People are now understanding that sugar is like poison in your body. If you eat a tiny little bit every once in a while, but very few people do that. When I go out to eat with people, lunch they have dessert, dinner they have dessert, and they drink alcohol, which is the same as eating sugar. I've often wondered if the people who give up sugar, and I put quotes around give up because they don't really give it up, they go back to it, are drinking alcohol as well, because your body doesn't know the difference between the alcohol and the sugar. That your endocrine system doesn't know the difference. So I was sick for a really long time, and the worst thing was that I was really depressed. I was depressed a lot. And I often wondered, starting from when I was like 10, why I was sick and uncomfortable and everybody around me wasn't. And so I started doing research way back then. I would read the medical columns in the newspaper, and I didn't know really where to look because I didn't know what was going on. And then one day in June of 1973, I remember it well, and this was a period where I was feeling terrible. I was under a lot of stress because I had been working in Hollywood in the TV business, which is fairly high stress. And I was watching television, and there was a documentary produced by Lucy Jarvis. I remember the name. And it was all about hypoglycemia. And as soon as I saw that, and they talked about the symptoms and some of the problems, I knew that that was at least a part of my problem. And I went to the doctor and I said, I want a glucose tolerance test for hypoglycemia. And he said, oh, Joan, you're just a hypochondriac. You just have to learn to live with all your disorders. And I said, well, just humor me and let me have this test, which he gave me, which is not a pleasant test. You have to drink a whole bunch of sugar stuff, which is enough to make anyone hypoglycemic. And then they test your blood sugar at various intervals. And according to the AMA, I had a raging case of hypoglycemia. My blood sugar went down to 30, which is very low. And the doctor didn't know what to do. So I found a couple of books on hypoglycemia and the symptoms and suggestions. There wasn't much. There was a book called Sugar Blues. And if I remember, there was one more book. And I started, I was meditating already. I had been meditating for a year by now. And I started just asking for someone to show me where I should get the information I needed. And at the time, I was married at the time, and we were looking for a house. And one of the real estate agents we were talking to told me about this doctor in the San Fernando Valley. I was living in Los Angeles, who treated hypoglycemia. I made an appointment immediately. And by August, I was in his office. And when I showed him the glucose tolerance test results, there was certainly no doubt in his mind. Turned out to be a very interesting and unusual doctor who had been treating, he was actually a bariatric doctor, which meant he was treating overweight people, and discovered that most of them had hypoglycemia. So he got really good at treating hypoglycemia. And he handed me a piece of paper that said, no peas, no beans, no corn, no rice, no potatoes, no bread, no grapes, no bananas, no watermelon, no sugar, no white flour, no caffeine. Did I say no alcohol? That was included in the list. So he said if I followed this eating plan that I wouldn't be depressed anymore. So I went home and started getting rid of all the sugar. And within a week, not only was I not eating sugar, I wasn't depressed anymore. And to me, that was the miracle. But I had a lot of other things that were not working properly within my body. That's a whole nother story. But I could see that immediately the difference, and actually started doing some writing for the doctor, and he let me read one of his biochemistry textbooks to help me figure out what was going on, because I was eating a lot of protein and not having any energy. So it's been a long drama. But here I am, and for the last, many years, I do not have a problem with depression, and I'm healthy, and I have more energy than I've ever had before. And I probably have more energy than people 20 years younger than I am, because of the changes I made way back then and decided to make that a lifestyle change. And now that all this information is available via the internet, it's really clear what has to be done. So if you haven't gotten the message, there are so many problems that can come from eating sugar. You have diabetes and heart disease and inflammation. Sugar causes inflammation in the body, and most chronic disease or dis-ease is caused by inflammation. So the idea is to minimize the amount of inflammation in your body. Now, how do you know if you have hypoglycemia? Well, on my website, there is a page that lists the symptoms of hypoglycemia, and you can also download the book Nourish Yourself for Health and Happiness, which I wrote with the doctor who saved my life. And it's an eating plan, a gradual eating plan for eating a healthier way of living, and also there's a vitamin program in there. Now, this was written in 1978, I think it was, somewhere around there. And so there was a limited amount of information on the planet. When I started doing this, there was one health food store in all of Los Angeles. And there wasn't a lot of help for doing this. So now that people are looking to give up sugar, yay, I'd like to offer as much help as I can. Just to give you a few of the symptoms from that list, just a few. There's something like 45 symptoms on the list, but things like frequent headaches, insomnia, hungry all the time, uncontrollable urges to eat, shaky when hungry, wake up in the middle of the night and you can't fall back to sleep. I had all of these. Trouble getting started in the morning, night sweats, body odor, upset stomach or indigestion, a lot of gastrointestinal stuff, being hyperactive, reduced sex drive, impotence or frigidity, skin problems, depressed, fearful, very anxious, overwhelmed by people or places, unexplained anxiety, poor memory, can't concentrate, can't decide easily, make mountains out of molehills, and leads to crying often, and being highly emotional and moody, can't work under pressure, poor self-image, nightmares and confusing dreams, feelings of hopelessness and suicidal thoughts. I had that big time. Fits of anger, irritable before meals, feel like screaming inside, hostile and aggressive, shy and withdrawn. And there are more symptoms because your blood sugar is what runs your cells. I mean, you need blood sugar for everything in your system. And if you're in low blood sugar, which is a pre-diabetic condition, then nothing's going to work right. And you don't know what it's like to be really healthy. So that's the hypoglycemic piece, which is affected by your endocrine system, and which includes your adrenal glands, your pancreas, your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland. In the book, Nourish Yourself for Health and Happiness, I have a brief explanation about how this works. I think if you know how your body works, it's easier to figure out what you need to do to fix it. So that's the physical piece. There's also a piece of brain science, which I certainly didn't know about back then, but sugar causes a dopamine response. Now, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, I've interviewed Loretta Bruning a couple of times, and she's very into happy brain chemicals, and one of those is dopamine. And sugar causes a dopamine response, which is the pleasure response. So you have a little, and you want a little more. The problem is the more you eat, it builds up a tolerance, and you become addicted, literally addicted. And I've said that giving up sugar is as difficult as giving up heroin. It's actually harder on some levels because sugar foods have all this emotional stuff around them. Like when you're a kid and grandma says you're a good girl or good boy, let's have an ice cream cone. So you learned about sugar being a reward food early in your life. So it's not only the dopamine response, it's all that, oh, people love me and I'm going to eat sugar kind of thing. And so giving up sugar requires a whole lot more than just not eating something. So I'm going to make some suggestions as to how you can approach it once you decide, and I'm going to say the word decide again, because you have to really make a decision that this is what I'm going to do no matter what. And if you have trouble, don't try to do it alone. There are now coaches out there who help people get off sugar. And the first thing to do is decide that you're going to do this. You don't have to do it right away, because what I'm going to suggest is that for about 2 weeks, start reading the labels on your food and get an idea of how much hidden sugar you're eating. Now, foods now will talk about extra sugars that are added. In other words, when you look at the nutritional ingredients in your foods, It'll show you how much sugar, how much carbohydrate, and you can see how much actual sugar you're eating. But remember, when the doctor gave me that piece of paper, it was not just sugar. It was sugar, alcohol, caffeine, processed foods, and peas, beans, corn, and sugary fruits. And the eating plan that he gave me only included 3 pieces of fruit a day, the size of a medium apple. I soon found out that even that was too much for me. And I went without eating rice or beans or corn or starches of any kind for quite a long time until my body regulated. And if I ate any of those things, I'd become depressed really easily. So when your body is sugar sensitive, and that includes the alcohol and the carbohydrates, you have to really be off of it for an extended period of time in order for you to be able to give it up for real. And so the first thing you do is start reading the labels on your food. It'll show you how many grams of extra sugar there are, but you don't want the total sugar number to be a whole lot more than 0, and look at the carbohydrate count. A high carbohydrate count would be 20 carbohydrates for a serving. You want as few as possible for at least a couple of months, so that because the carbohydrates in your body are processed like sugar. And there's a difference between whole foods and processed foods, because when you're eating whole foods like fruit rather than juice, the sugar is contained in a matrix which takes longer to digest, so that your body isn't just flooded with the sugar. And it's, as I said, this is not easy to do, and the idea is to not punish yourself if you slip a little bit, but understand if you slip a little bit, it's going to take longer to get off of it completely, because your body is going to go, oh, here it is again. We get to do that one more time. And I was reading a study this morning about mice who were given alcohol, and these were not mice who were not genetically attuned to alcohol. They didn't have the basis for a problem with alcohol, and so they taught them about alcohol a little bit at a time, and then they let them binge drink. And after one binge drink session, doing it once, which is a lot of alcohol, they were addicted. And the poor mice were walking around bloated all the time. All right, so don't forget to read the labels on your food so that you're aware of what you're eating. And to make your journey easier, all of the health things you've heard about really do help. Eating fresh, whole foods, in my world, preferably organic, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise. Exercise, I can't tell you how important that is. Meditating on a regular basis, just living well, according to what your body needs. If you kept putting the wrong fuel in your car, it wouldn't work very well. So if you're willing to do what you have to do so that you increase your energy levels, you increase your productivity, you make better decisions, you're not as emotional. There are just so many advantages to establishing a really healthy lifestyle. So I'm going to put a couple of links on my website to articles I found about this that I think are helpful. And you'll see that fresh whole foods, exercise, enough sleep, meditation, healthy habits will help you stay off sugar. And what happens after a period of time, I can't give you an exact amount of time, could be a year, you're not going to crave sugar anymore. I went out for dinner last night with a friend, and we had dinner. I can eat rice now without having a problem. I've talked a little bit about the treatment I went through called low dose allergen immunotherapy, which helped me get over my allergy to carbohydrates and even sugar. I mean, I can eat pretty much what I want now, but I have no desire for sugar. It's amazing. And he wanted dessert. He asked for something gluten-free, and they happened to have a coconut cream pie that had a minimal amount of sugar. And I wasn't even tempted because I haven't had sugar in so long that I forget what it's like. When I think about eating a piece of chocolate cake, and that's happening to me as I'm talking now, my whole face kind of scrunches up because it's almost painful when I think about eating sugar. Before I saw that documentary and got off the sugar, I was eating, when I was working in Hollywood, I was having a couple of Cokes a day and a couple of candy bars and rice pudding for dessert. I mean, and I was always eating chocolate as a kid. And I mean, I was a sugarholic. There was no doubt about it. So I don't bother people when we go out to eat. They eat what they want. They don't even notice that I'm just not eating dessert. They don't make a big deal out of it anymore. And I've been without alcohol for all these years as well. And I can go out and have a good time socially. I see there's a whole movement now for people to give up alcohol. And I'm a happy camper. And the way I eat and the way I live does not diminish my enjoyment of life. So if you have any questions, you can contact me on Facebook by writing to me at joan@prosperityplace.com. I will put a link on the site in the show notes on prosperityplace.com with articles and the book, Nourish Yourself for Health and Happiness, which includes the symptom list. I'll also put a link to the symptom list on the website. And I hope you'll consider this. I know it's a big decision. It's like giving up alcohol is a big decision. But I can't emphasize enough how much more enjoyment you'll get from just living. And it's an amazing how that works. And I believe that you'll do better in business and financially as well, because this is all about energy, about your energy, the energy you produce, and the energy you generate. And money is just part of the energy you generate. So, thank you for letting me share this. I think it's really important. And I hope coming into the holiday season that I've kind of tweaked your awareness so that when you're sitting around those holiday dinner tables, that you can decide, make a conscious choice as to what you want to put into your body-mind, because it really matters. So that's it for today. I thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye now.